Welcome, welcome, welcome to the first. This is the first Karen Hunter Book Spotlight, and I'm so pleased to talk to this gentleman because he's been on my show. He's actually been a fixture as we journeyed into making people's lives healthy, wealthy, and wise. The wealthy part, he has been very much instrumental in getting us right, and now he has a book. He's already a #1 best-selling author, and his new book is called Everyday Millionaires: How Ordinary People Built Extraordinary Wealth and How You Can Too. Let me welcome Chris Hogan.
Well, thank
Chris
you.
Hogan.
Thank you.
You know, I spent not a long time reading it because it was an easy read. It was a quick, easy read, and you challenged me in a couple of areas, which we'll get to later on. But I wanted to first start with, there are 11 million millionaires, you say, in this country. 11 million millionaires. Why is that something that anyone should aspire to? Is this an important benchmark?
Well, I think when you look at it, especially as you start to deal with money and thinking about financial freedom, I think having goals is absolutely imperative to be able to have something that we're striving for. And I don't know about you, but as you hear about the American dream, oftentimes I was starting to wonder, is this something that's even possible nowadays? Now, at our company, Ramsey Solutions, we've been around people that have done certain things consistently over time, and they end up winning. We see that. But you think about in our culture, you're told you can't do it. The little man can't get ahead. And even some media will tell you that you can't do it, or maybe you shouldn't do it. And so I wanted to know, is this something that is even possible nowadays? And so digging into it, I really got curious about it. Started talking to people at the company, and we eventually got to the point where we commissioned a study. Now, Karen, I don't want to say just a study because it's the largest study that's ever been done on millionaires. Yeah. We talked to over 10,000 of them. And so when you talk to 10,000 people, you start to find out some truths. You start to bust up some myths, but you find out some truth.
Let's get to the myths first of all.
All right.
What is a millionaire?
Okay.
What's a millionaire?
Well, let's talk about it because defining it, people get confused. It's not someone that makes $1 million a year. Okay. This is someone that you take what you own minus what you owe. Now, let me talk about this for a second. So we're talking about assets versus liabilities. But what you own, that's your 401k, your 403b, your house if you have it paid off, the money in your bank account, all these things that you own minus what you owe. So that's anything you have debt on. So if you look at what you own minus what you owe, if that total puts you at $1 million or more, then congratulations, you're an everyday millionaire.
So that could
Yeah,
be
I
a
see
lot.
you doing the math over there.
You know, I'm just
you
carried a one.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, no. And it's weird because in your book you talk about most of us, we have these very definitive views of who's a millionaire. 50% of baby boomers and 3/4 of millennials believe that people who are millionaires inherited their money. Like the only way to be a millionaire in this country is for somebody to leave you a windfall. And you say
that's not true. And I got to be honest, I'm from Kentucky, so I tell people I'm a little Kentucky boy. Now, only little deep down inside, right? But don't go there, right? But it was one of those things that even I thought that. I thought you had to come from money in order to have money. And really, it started to color the way I viewed the world and what was optional or possible. Because I didn't expect my family to be leaving me anything. So it's really important to debunk that myth, because if you think that's the only way that you can become wealthy is that your family has to leave it to you, and if your family isn't capable or doesn't have anything to leave you, in your mind, you're already defeated. So the truth is that we only had 21% of millionaires inherit anything.
79% inherited zero.
Yeah, nothing. And so it's important to realize that, because we're talking about first-generation millionaires, people that over time were consistent and focused, and they built it. And I think it's really important for this because, especially for me, it doesn't matter where you come from. I had a chance to spend some time with Condoleezza Rice last spring. Woman is brilliant, speaks 4 languages, grew up in rural Alabama, and she was called a lot of things but her name throughout her time growing up. But one of the things she said that her family instilled in her parents said, honey, it doesn't matter where you come from, it's about where you're going. And I think that's a profound statement for us, especially nowadays. We have so much division. We have so much division in this country right now. You've got Republican, you got Democrat. You've got black, you've got white, you got brown. You have all these things that are dividing us. And what I want people to do is really start to think about what unifies us. What's the one thing we all have in common? And we do have dreams and goals. We do have people that we love and people that we want to provide for. So it's really time for us to shift and really look inward and understand that we control ourselves. 97% of these 10,000 millionaires that I talked to said that they all believe they control their own destiny.
And I wanted to piggyback on that, because one of the reasons why I wanted this to be the first in my book series, because I believe a lot of us are living in bondage, right? A lot of us are not living the lives that we were put here to live, right? So we get up every day and it's almost like zombies. We go to work, we come home, we do the same thing every day, and we rinse and repeat, and there's no end in sight, right? A lot of people believe they won't be able to retire because they don't have enough money to retire. Things are getting more and more expensive. We have heavy debt, a lot of credit cards, and there's no end in sight, right?
No.
But we have to start to think about ourselves differently and think about how we can get out of this differently. And I've said before, you've challenged me to pay off my car. You've challenged me to look at debt differently than the way I did, because at the end of the day, if you don't have debt, which most millionaires don't have any credit card debt. Most millionaires don't have a mortgage. And now you think, like, how is that possible? In reading your book, I understand now how that's possible, and you got to have a plan.
You really do. Now, I'm glad you said the word bondage, because a lot of times I had to really think about myself. Why do I believe some of these things about money? And a lot of that came from family. It came from being around. I don't know about you, but I got crazy in my family, right? And if you don't think you do, you might be the one in your family, right? But thinking about really, where did that belief system come from? What did I think was possible? And then I started to think, well, it's because either A, I never saw an example of it, or no one ever talked to me about potential. Do you remember the permission slips you used to have to get signed in grade school? To go on the field trip or whatever. And I can remember in health class, we were showing one of them films about childbirth, and Mama Hogan wasn't signing that permission slip, okay? So me, Jonathan, and Bobby and Mike were all out in the hallway while the class got to watch that video. And I started thinking about that, kind of chuckling. But my point was this: as an adult, we get to sign our own permission slip. Like, there's no more about whatever your family thought or where you were born, what your family had or didn't have. As an adult, you get to make a choice about you and your future. And I think that's why I want people to know the truth. Because if you believe that you can become a millionaire, that it's possible for you, that you're not excluded, but that it's actually possible, I think we can change our knowledge, and we can also change our actions to put us on that path.
That is so powerful, right? 'Cause I just remember my dad used to take me to the bank every week with him. He had a corner store. So I had to roll coins, on the weekends, roll his coins. And it was something I looked forward to, the pennies, the dimes, and the nickels. And then we would go to the bank, and he opened up an account for me. And I could see, this is when you had statements before there was an internet and a computer and all that, and it was aspirational. I was set up to win by somebody that saw a future. He had foresight. And that's something you talk about in this book too, that, for a lot of us, we think, oh man, I may not have enough to leave my family, so I'm just going to live my life right now. I'm going to live my life to my fullest, right? But you talk about your planning for your future, for your sons, not just for your sons, your grandson, for beyond that. And when I was reading that, I was like, it's not just money. You're actually putting the way your grandfather put into you. He may not have had money, but he instilled certain things in you that became a legacy. So legacy is not just in dollars.
No, and I'm glad you bring that up. My grandparents, they were very instrumental in my childhood. My mom was a single mom. And so as a young boy, I would spend time with my grandparents while she went off to work. The deposits they made into this little boy is much larger than money. That was love, that was concern, that was challenged the way I think about the world and what's possible. I saw the way they treated other people in the neighborhood, how we did things for them, and there was nothing discussed. And so you're absolutely right. That mindset is bigger than that. I want my boys, I have 3 sons, and they're 11, 13, and 14, so pray for me. They're hormonal, and they eat up everything. But I want them to grow up to be good young men. And I hope one day that my grandkids or my great-grandkids are able to have some options because I was able to grasp an opportunity right now. So I think there is a trickle-down impact, but there's also a ripple impact. When we start to do kind and we start to think differently, you view the world a little bit differently. I don't see color. I don't see your political affiliation. What I see is a human that has dreams. They have some scars, they've got some battle wounds, and they're trying to get somewhere. So I'm either part of that solution or I'm part of the problem standing in their way.
We're talking with Chris Hogan. He's the author of Everyday Millionaire, How Ordinary People Built Extraordinary Wealth and How You Can Too, the You Can Too part. Let's get back to intentionality and legacy building and having foresight. You shared a story briefly on the radio with me last year about this tiger paw tattoo. Actually, you didn't tell me what kind of tattoo it was. You just said, a bunch of you guys had won a championship and the whole team, they were going to go out and get a tattoo. And Chris Hogan was like, oh, I can't go with you because you had plans.
That's right.
Now, tell a story for people who don't.
So in college, our 1991, we won a national championship at Georgetown College, small NAI school in Kentucky. And when we won that championship, everybody wanted to go get this tiger paw tattoo on the calf. And it was to commemorate the season, the hard work, and our effort and our goal. Well, I'd always had this goal of going into the FBI. I'd known this since 7th grade, so I had lived accordingly. And I knew I couldn't have a tattoo and be in the bureau. So in my mind, I knew I'd had that goal since 7th grade. So there were things I could do and there were things I couldn't do. And so even in that moment, even though there was a celebration, I told them, I'll go with you. I just can't get that. And in talking to them, they understood. They didn't like it, but they respected my decision. And I stood firm.
And what was cool about that was that you had enough wherewithal. And I wish that we had that kind of vision for our money, for ourselves, for our own futures, right? Now, I may not ever want to be an FBI agent, but I do want to be a millionaire. And I do want to have enough money to fund other people's dreams, right?
Yeah.
So, but you have to know what the blueprint is for that. So you studied, here's what you need to do to become an FBI agent. And I know I can't have a tattoo and I have to keep my record clean. I have to do these things. So you had a checklist. So going in, you knew immediately, and you were a teenager. You weren't like, somebody that, was fully formed, but you knew that much.
Well, and the beauty of that came from the people in my life. Like, I've had so many great people guiding me. And I'm talking about from grade school teachers, Mrs. Barrows, Mrs. Mertz, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Reeves, going up into high school with coaches, my family members. And so everybody saw something in me more than what I saw for myself, or they took the time to pour into me. And so I think that's why it's so important for us to communicate our dreams out loud, to be able to show people that it's worth striving towards something. Even if you can't see it, it doesn't mean that you can't get near it. And even if you're not there right now, it doesn't mean that you're done. It just means you might be stuck or you stopped. So it's time to restart.
All right, so let's get into these myths about millionaires, what people think. So again, most people think millionaires inherited a bunch of money, and when we think about millionaires, we think Oprah or Bill Gates, I guess. Or, so either you have to be like this tech genius or this entertainment mogul or somebody that's done something really special. But the truth is the 10,000 people that you interviewed, I saw a lot of teachers and police officers and regular folk, accountants. I think there was somebody in insurance. I was like, hey, wait a minute, that could be my next door neighbor. Tell us about the 10,000.
Well, and in doing the study, I wanted to know, what are their professions? What are these people doing? Because people typically think a man or woman in a sharp suit, right? A millionaire, someone in a sharp suit leaning up against a fancy car in front of a big house. The truth is, they're regular, everyday hard-working people. The top 3 professions of the millionaires that we studied. Number 1 was engineers, right? And of course, they're good at planning. You expect that. Number 2 was accountants. Okay, that really doesn't surprise us. They're good at counting money and stuff. Number 3 blew me away. Number 3 was teachers. Teachers. The position that we know is undervalued and even underpaid. But teachers got there. And how? Well, teachers are always striving to learn, right? And they're used to study plans and doing things. And so someone asked me, they said, there's no way teachers can be on there. I go, well, hold on a minute here. We got to learn how to count. Like, if you think about it, if you've got a $500,000 house and you've paid that off, that's now over in the own category. That's an asset, right? And if you've been steadily putting money aside for 25 to 28 years in your 403B, because that's the teacher version of the 401k, right? A retirement plan, you start to put that money consistently over time and you get $500,000 there. Well, you got $500,000 over here in your 403B, $500,000 in your home that's now asset. You add that together, that's an everyday millionaire. And so it's not a matter of possible, it's a matter of us grabbing our potential and being consistent enough to follow it.
Teachers, I think there was somebody else on there that I was like, they start out making $5,000 a year. And I was like, how do you save enough? So let's talk about that a little bit, because you said a lot of times people are afraid to save, or they save in very non-risky things. And then there are other people that do very risky things because they want to get rich quick. So it's like that lotto mentality, and they get into Bitcoin and a whole host of other, whatever's, the latest thing.
That's right.
Both of those strategies will not make you a millionaire.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, getting rich quick will oftentimes lead you to getting broke fast. So you want to be careful of that mentality. We have these attributes that I found according to these millionaires. One of them was this knowledge that building wealth requires consistency over time. So it doesn't mean sporadic. It doesn't mean 1 month you drop 500 in and the next few months you forget about it and you move on. No. It's intentionality in your money, being consistent over time, and it puts you on that path. So I just want people to hear this. It's not a matter of your income. It's not a matter of your job. It doesn't matter where you were born. This is about you making a decision for yourself to chase down financial freedom and grab it with both hands, to be able to think differently about doing stuff, not to hear about a need or a charity and say what I used to say years ago, I wish I could help them. I wish I could do more. Wishing is good for kids. As an adult, it can be dangerous. So what we have to do is put ourselves on a path to be able to do those things. And I'm going to tell you, I read about a story of a lady that was on an airline. And she was taking a flight, and she got on there and sat down, and she was talking to her seatmate. You travel, Karen. You know how this can be. You typically put on headphones so you don't talk to people.
And a mask.
Right. I'm the nice one. But anyway, this lady was sitting there, and she was talking about what she did. And turns out she was a teacher for homeless kids. And she started talking about what she was trying to do for these kids, the impact she was trying to have. And before the flight took off, a lady leaned up from the seat behind. She was eavesdropping and said, I heard what you're doing for those kids. She goes, will you take this and take that back to them and help them? It was a wad of $100 bills. And the lady said, oh, ma'am, no, I wasn't telling this story to get money. And the lady said, I know. That's why I want you to have it for the kids. And another gentleman leaned across and gave her something. She ended up with almost $1,500, right, from having a conversation. My point is that broke people can't do that. They couldn't give that money to a cause that their heart felt, right? And I think if we follow a plan and start to get a little bit more intentional, what we can do is put ourselves in a position to be a blessing or to help someone else that's in need.
Reading your book, I told you off mic that first of all, you inspired me last year, because we were being inspired to retire, right?
Right.
We were getting inspired, right, to pay off my car because, in my mind, I've always believed that debt was good, right? I've been taught that, it's good. It's other people's money. It's good, Why would I spend my own money? So I had a car payment, and I'm like, I'm not getting that money back, Chris, and I do have it. So I had a plan. I had a 1-year plan. I took the amount of the car note, divided by 12, and every month I put that money in the bank. And I paid off my car. So let me just say thank you, right?
I'm so proud
thank
of
you.
you.
No car payment.
Yes.
Reading this book, you said most of these millionaires don't have a house mortgage. And I said, wow. Now that took me a little bit. I had to take a deeper breath because to pay off my house, who does that?
Right.
So what's the plan? So I had to ask myself, I had to sit down, is this feasible? Of course, it has to be, right? So you have to talk to yourself, some of you. I can do this. All right. How long does it take? So then I had to be realistic. Of course, I want to pay it off next year. That's not realistic.
Right.
Okay. I don't care what y'all think I make money, whatever. 2 years, maybe 3. I think I can do it in 3 years. How much do I have to put? Now it's going to be painful, but the freedom of that. So talk about the mortgage thing and why we have that twisted.
Right. Well, I want to first talk about the mindset of what you just walked through. From when you hear new information, the first thing we typically do is try to resist it, right? Because to acknowledge it means that something better is available than what we currently have.
Or we have to change.
Or something's going to have to give up. That's exactly right. The only reason why we make that decision to make that change is we see the benefit and the payoff being better than where we are right now. That's exactly what you did with your car. That car payment is no longer leaving you each month. I guarantee you, and I'm so proud of you for paying that car off.
Well, thank you.
I know what is going to happen. The money that was going out toward that car payment is at some point going to get shifted and go toward that house.
Already.
See?
Yep.
Because see, that's what happens. When you learn how to do math and you learn how to count, you realize when I've got debt, I'm giving my money to others, so I'm making them rich instead of me keeping it and building my own wealth. And so you're right. These millionaires are paying off their house. They're paying it off right at 11 years, right? But if you get rid of
it's a 30-year mortgage.
Right. That I want you to refinance to a 15.
So let's talk about that because, when you go to do the paperwork, anybody in here who's bought a house, you go through, and of course you say 30 years because I want to save $500, $600, $700 a month. So that's money that I don't have to pay out. $500, $600, $700 is a lot. That's like 2 car payments for some of us, right? So the math of that makes sense. 30 years. I'll probably get another house between now and then. And then
Can I tell you the truth?
Please.
As a former banker, as a person that owned a mortgage company, the reason why we most oftentimes go with a 30-year mortgage is because that's what's presented. Okay, that's typically because it's the cheaper payment between a 15. A 15-year mortgage is going to cost you between $500 to $600 more per month than a 30-year mortgage. But if we can just do the math again, like I said, you can't lie. The numbers don't lie. You've got a 30-year mortgage versus a 15. The automatic difference between that is 15 years. So if we can get rid of the car payment, refinance the 30 to the 15, now what I'm doing is putting myself on a path. So all this to say, when you get that good faith estimate from the banker or the mortgage company, let's learn how to count. Let's look at this and go, don't rationalize it and say, well, I'm only going to be in this house 5 or 6 years. See, that's the mentality where the bank is getting rich. Now, I have nothing against banks. They have checking accounts and savings accounts and money market accounts. That's a good thing. The other stuff is unnecessary. It doesn't help you get where you want to go. And I'll say that truthfully. But the reality is looking at it and learning how to count, it helps us stay on a plan. And that's being intentional. I don't know any of these millionaires. None of them said they got there by luck or success. Right? They got there by planning, right? They were focused. They were intentional. They made sacrifices, but the sacrifices were worth it for where they are now.
So a 30-year mortgage that I'm paying $500, $600 less for, I'm paying actually how many more dollars over the course of the 30 years?
Oh, if you do the math on it, it's a few $100,000 more.
Okay, so
yes.
I buy a house for X amount, let's say $250,000, $300,000. Over the course of 30 years, I'm paying triple?
Probably double.
Double the amount that I actually paid for that house. But if I chop that in half to a 15-year mortgage, how much am I saving?
Oh my gosh, you'll not only save the 15 years, but you'll also save yourself an interest, big time. Typically that amount plus half.
But isn't that a write-off, Chris Hogan?
Oh, Karen, you're trying to get me riled up here.
That's all right. Isn't that a tax break?
Listen, I've heard that from so many people. Well, I get to write it off. Number one, you only get to write it off if you fully itemize your taxes. Okay, and most people don't do that. You only get to write it off for a certain number of years, depending upon where you are. So what that's become, Karen, in all honesty, yes, you can write off the interest if you fully itemize and you follow the process. What we've done as a culture is grab that as an excuse. Okay, now an excuse. Now I had a coach tell me years ago, a football coach. He told me an excuse is the skin of a lie wrapped with a reason. Okay, now think about that. Because I'd made some excuses back in the day. A skin of a lie wrapped with a reason.
Let that person run over you.
That's right. Well, you didn't have to go there, Karen.
Sorry. It was in the book. So.
But the reality is mentally, when we start to make those excuses, they can become our logic for not giving up or changing something. And so what I want people to do is stop excuses. Let's start moving forward. I want you financially independent. I want you living your dreams. So we've got to learn the truth, which means we've got to get rid of some lies and maybe even get rid of some resistance. But we need to become aware so we can make choices.
We have to take a break. When we come back, because one of the things that kept going over in my mind, all this extra money. So you talk about the 401k or 401b, and those of you who don't have them, here's another option because Chris gives it all in the book. Here are your other options. But what if I don't have extra money every week? I don't have extra money in my paycheck every 2 weeks or every month to do the max because I'm at a budget right now where every single dime is accounted for. I don't have the extra $500 to put a 15-year mortgage into play. What do I do? We really need to have some actionable plans to get the money to be able to put ourselves in a position to win. And for many of us, we are right at that place. And we need to get to break through, to break the bondage to a place where we can start to make these decisions that will impact our future. Can you help us with that?
Well, I think the first thing is you've got to understand where you sit right now, meaning you need to do a budget. You need to do a budget and understand exactly where you sit and where's your money going, because we all have money leaks. For me, it was grocery shopping.
I
right?
remember.
Yeah, you remember me going in.
Yeah, them steaks.
Spending around $1,200 a month. It was just two of us. Right, both of us working, and when you get on a budget and you realize, man, that can go down to $600 a month. Well, that's $600 I found right there. So for someone that tells me they can't afford it, I would say then really reality is they don't understand how much it's worth it. Because what'll happen is you'll get rid of stuff. You'll cut out cable. You'll get rid of the landline phone when you understand what's at stake here. Do you want to work 15 or 20 more years longer, or do you want to have something to pass on to your kids? So it's a matter of sacrifices. I'm not telling you this is going to be easy. I'm just telling you it's going to be worthwhile. When you understand what's at stake and you start working toward it, you can do that. And you start scaling back. You start eating the food in the pantry, that can of lima beans that's moved with you 3 times, right? You actually eat them bad boys. But we make decisions for ourselves that empower us. And that, to me, gives us freedom, and it gives us this hope for something better.
All right. Well, we're going to get into that. Also, the other thing I want to talk about, you say starting young, right? If everyone had the foresight that you had to be an FBI agent and as a teenager to know not to get that tattoo, if we all had that, I shouldn't have signed up for that credit card in college because they come on campus. If I had only known then that this was a trap, I wouldn't have done it. If I had only known that, all the little work study jobs, if I could put that money away,
right,
just $20, that 20 years from now, I could be a millionaire if I'd only known, right? Now you're 50. And you didn't save anything. What does somebody do there? We're going to talk about that when we come back. Chris Hogan, it is Everyday Millionaires, how ordinary people built extraordinary wealth and how you can too. I know there's a blueprint for somebody starting late. We're going to talk about that with Chris Hogan when we come back. Welcome back to the Karen Hunter Book Spotlight with Chris Hogan.
Thank you.
Everyday Millionaires. All right. In this book, and I promise you it is a great, easy read. Have a notebook handy. You're going to dog ear some pages. You're going to highlight. I got my jacked up book in my bag, but I want the pretty book for the audience here. And you're going to give away some books, too. We're going to do that on our show as well. But, I've read story after story of these regular people, and it's always the same. They came from a certain place. A lot of farmers, too.
Yes.
Which is interesting. Henry Ford, you quote him. I went and researched his background. He started out on a farm. His father owned a farm. His father wanted him to farm. He was like, I'm not really trying to farm. But there's certain lessons. You talk about being a farm boy. There's certain lessons that you learn on a farm that take you into becoming a millionaire.
It really is. And it was shocking to me to see the links people had to farming, whether they grew up on a farm or had a farm or at some point worked on it a few summers. But when you start to think about what goes into someone being successful, farming is not easy. Farming is one of those things that you actually reap what you sow. Literally.
Yeah.
And so the mindset of getting up and working, it doesn't matter if it's raining. It doesn't matter if it's snowing. You've got animals to feed. There are things that have to be done, right? And I think when you're trying to be successful in life, it doesn't matter what the weather is saying. It doesn't even matter what your friends and family are saying. There are absolutely things that have to be done. So I think that's one of those attributes of being a hard worker, being consistent. Those things aren't an accident that those people end up winning. And
what you put in the ground is what's going to come out.
That's right.
So if you plant a crop of crap, you're going to get a crop of crap back, right? And people, and that goes for your life, beyond money,
yes,
right?
Yes.
People don't even put 2 and 2 together like
That's
that.
right.
What you plant is what you're going to actually harvest.
That's
So
right.
Be very intentional about what you put into the ground. Before we went to break, I asked you about people starting late. I hear this a lot on my show. I challenged our listeners first year to save $10,000. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And the next year, I upped it to $25,000, and I got some pushback. And they were like, "Why not double?" And then I'm like, "Well, can't you do better than double? We're in excellence right now. Like 10,000 is not enough anymore. Up it to 20." So I imagine coming into 2019 with people having $35,000. I imagine everybody listening having that. So I did a little thing when we first got back. There's a woman who has the cure for cancer, and she's done it with nanoparticles and lab rats, and she's eradicated tumors completely. She needs $10 million to start human clinical trials. So I've had many people say, Karen, what should I do with my money? Should I invest it in this? And I said, hold on to it, because most people don't have savings, which you talk about here. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to see if, I said, over the next 4 months, $500 each person that saved the $35,000 over 2 years. That's $2,000. We'd have the $10 million in 4 months if all of you did it. And a whole lot of people didn't do it. And it was so disappointing, but also it goes back to what you said. We got so many calls. I wish I had the money. And I'm like, why don't you have it? Because they didn't plan for it. And it's sad to know that there's so many people in their twilight years, heading towards retirement with not enough to live off of, who may have to work until they take their last breath. Yeah. What do you say to that person?
Well, I think, number one, we all can look back on some things and wish we would have done some things different, right? We all can glance back. I call that's hindsight, and wish we'd made some changes. But even with my first book, Retire Inspired, that I released in 2016, I would meet a lot of people that were in their 50s or mid-50s, and they hadn't done anything, or they had $35,000 in credit card debt and 2 car loans, and they were at this point, and they were like, is it too late for me? And honestly, I would be shocked to hear that. Is it too late? And so I would look at them and go, absolutely not. I go, listen, you've got an opportunity this day to make a decision, to start to work toward better. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I just know it's going to be worthwhile. And so I think it's less about glancing back, but we have to focus forward. I tell people, when you drive in your car, the rearview mirror is there to help you navigate and to see some stuff, right? But the windshield is bigger. That's where we got to focus forward. And so even that person that might be later in life, there's still time. Right. And we need more people hearing that encouraging word, because what happens is when you make a mistake, you beat yourself up, and you can keep beating yourself up unless you've got somebody that's a cheerleader or somebody that's a coach to tell you, hey, stop doing that and let's focus that energy moving forward. So I would tell that individual that's in that mid-50s and doesn't have anything, let's get on a budget, because that gives you control over your money. And it's much better to tell your money where to go instead of wonder where it went. That's a John Maxwell quote, and I love that. To attack debt, using the debt snowball, list the debts out smallest to biggest. Getting out of
smallest to biggest.
Smallest to biggest. Most people want to say, Chris, I need to attack the biggest one first, or the highest interest rate. No, getting out of debt's not about math. If it was about math, you wouldn't be in debt to begin with, because interest that you pay is a penalty, right? So it's not about math. Getting out of debt's about momentum. So I want you to list out smallest to biggest, and you're going to make minimum payments on everything but that little one. That little one, I want you to throw everything at it but the kitchen sink. I want you to cut out eating out. The only time you see a restaurant's when you drive by it, right? I want you to take on extra jobs and watch what happens when you attack that little $500 Visa or American Express or whichever one it is. When you attack that thing, what happens is something in you changes. Your mind starts to think differently. You start to think, I can, instead of I can't. And that I can attitude is the attitude that will lead you to financial freedom.
The littlest debt that you have, get rid of that. And then when you're finished with that, roll that into the next one.
That's exactly right. Now, if it's a credit card, now this is a key crucial point, Karen. Anybody that's got a credit card, once you pay off that credit card, I want you to cut it up and call and close it.
Woo, close it.
Shut it down.
Even if that affects your credit.
Oh, don't. See, that's a softball pitch right there. You try and get me riled up over here. All right, Hogan. So let's talk about this. FICO score. Okay, what does the FICO score? I'm a former banker. I used to have people jumping through hoops over FICO score. Let's talk about what it means. FICO score measures how much debt you have, how well you've paid the debt, the type of debt that you have, and the likelihood that they give you more debt. Did you hear a theme? The FICO score is a measurement of your debt levels, not your wealth level. So I'm not worried about, I've talked to millionaires that based on credit score couldn't go rent an apartment, right? Because they took into credit score, but they could write a check to buy the complex.
Come on.
Okay, so let's
You just freed a whole bunch. Can we just pause on that for a second? we have over the last decade or so have been inundated with FICO score this and FICO. You got to have 800 perfect credit score. And you just said something today that I have never heard anyone say, Chris Hogan, that it only measures debt. and it's only about debt. And if your goal is to get out of debt, who gives a damn about a FICO score? Chris Hogan, I'm done.
I'm raising praise hands right now.
Come on.
No, I need more people to see that and to understand it, because then you don't get manipulated by the bank. That's where people are worried. They don't pay their electric bill because they pay the bank statement or whatever. And I want people to pay their debts, but we've got to be aware and understand really what matters. So FICO score, I know people that have a 750 FICO score that don't have $2 in the bank. It just means they've paid all their debts. Well, that's the wrong measurement. I want people to look at where they are, and we talk about baby steps. This is something Dave Ramsey started with our company years ago. Baby steps are the plan to help people walk through the process. We teach them to get $1,000 saved, right? Baby step number 1. Baby step 2 is attack your debt with the debt snowball. List out debt, smallest to biggest. Once you get your debt paid off, then I want you to build up a fully funded emergency fund. That's baby step number 3. Now you've got cushion between you and life happening. Right? Now, once you get that done, you've done those things one at a time up till now. Now you're going to start to do multiple things. Baby step 4 is investing 15% of your household income into retirement type of accounts, 403Bs, Roth IRAs, 401Ks. Then you would also start to save for college if you have younger kids, younger or older. And baby step number 6 is attack and pay off the house. But the best one, baby step 7, is to build wealth and give. And giving's the best thing you could ever do with money. So that's the plan we lay out for people. And we've had millions of people go through Financial Peace University, which is the 9-week course that we have to help them learn about money, take control of money, but more importantly, start to make progress with their money.
We're talking with Chris Hogan. The book is Everyday Millionaires. Dave Ramsey wrote the foreword.
Yeah.
It's great. Powerful book. But what you're talking about is not even money. See, that's the truth. As I was going through, I was like, Chris thinks he's slick. This is not about money. This is about character. This is about freedom. This is about people taking stock and control of their lives. Money is just a conduit. Money's just the thing that you bounce off of. But it's not really about money.
No, it really isn't. I really feel like based on all the people I've told you that have helped me in my life to dream bigger, to try harder, people that have picked me up when I've stumbled, it's a mindset. And I've had some incredible people in my life cheering me on. I think if I can help people change their perspective, I can help them change their lives. Meaning that it's not a matter that you're not qualified or you're not in this select group. No. This is a matter of what do you believe is possible for you?
That was the other thing. I come from a culture that for so many years didn't have, anything of their own, right? And so to have something, we have put a lot of value in things, the cars, the red bottoms, we sing about it, we rap about it, and you have whole TV shows devoted to the house, the over-the-top houses. Most millionaires drive the same car for 5 years that's paid for. That made me smile, by the way, because that's aspirational. But I used to flip out cars, because it's a status thing, right? The bags, the number of bags you have, status, value. But if you don't have anything, what difference does it make that you have 10 Birkin bags or whatever, or red bottom shoes, if you have nothing to show for it, or if one bad thing can happen and you have nothing, like literally nothing. So that mindset change, when you look at the 11 million millionaires, the vast majority of them, you would never know are millionaires.
No, not at all, because they're not, number one, they're not focused on what other people think. 97% of them feel they control their own destiny. 94% of them live on less than they make. So what they are is they're clued in on their goals. They're clued in on what they're wanting to make happen. They're not worried about what other people think. And I love that. I love that mindset, because you do have to put some blinders on when you're chasing down goals. You're going to have things to try to distract you. You're going to have people to try to detract you, to tell you you can't do it. So I think you got to get enough people in your corner. You got to be careful of who you hang around with. Like some studies have shown, your income is on average of 10 to 15% of the 5 people you hang around with the most. Okay. Wow. Now, when I first read that years ago, I was like, I need some new friends.
New friends,
okay,
yes.
I had to make some upgrades, right?
Were you one of these people, Chris Hogan, that was flashy, that needed to have a certain, suit type or a certain kind of watch? Or?
No, I mean, we all have our money stupid spots. But vehicles or things of that nature were never anything that I tripped up on. Now, I did make a vehicle mistake years ago. right? I was having my first child, and so I thought you had to have an SUV. I thought it was against the law to bring a baby home in a sedan, right? And went out and did some stupid with a SUV loan, But with that, I never did peer pressure. I never got too caught up in that. Problem is I had some weak moments at times that caused me to do money stupid on a bigger scale. So it took some time to clean that up. But I think self-awareness is important for all of us. And I had a lady come up to me. I was out in Denver doing a book signing. She came up. She goes, "Chris, you and Dave Ramsey don't want nobody to have no stuff." Right? She was a little bitty thing too, So I squatted down to look at her. I said, "Oh, honey, no. I want you to have stuff. I want you to have nice stuff. I just don't want stuff to have you." And when you have it with debt, that's exactly what's happening. You're leaving your family to go work to pay for this stuff that ultimately doesn't count.
Recount. FICO score doesn't matter because it's all debt. So if you have no debt, who cares? So no credit card debt. You want no one to have any credit card debt. If you use a credit card, you use it with power. So I only have an American Express now.
Right.
So you got to pay that off at the end of the month.
Yeah, let me be clear. I don't want people to have a credit card at all.
Period.
None.
So how do you function? Debit card?
Listen,
what are we doing?
73% of these millionaires never carried $1 in credit card debt. Okay, so what do? You have a debit card and you have cash, right? That's what I've got. I've got Benjamins and all kinds of presidents
now
in my
pocket. Now you're telling people no one's going to attack you. So I guess you're good.
I'm petite.
Yeah. Nobody's coming for Chris Hogan. You ain't got to worry about that. All right. So you want no debt, debit cards only.
I want people to get themselves out of debt because debt is bondage. Pay off credit cards, pay off student loans, car loans, even get working like these millionaires have and pay off your house in under 12 years. And what happens? Your income stays with you. You get to do more of what you want to do when you want to do it. We're going to have a happier country, getting more people moving toward financial freedom.
I agree. The thing that also blew me away, 80% of millionaires are married. 80% of millionaires are married. So I had to put a spin on it for myself because I have zero desire to get married again, ever. And I'm like, well, can we do this through partnership? Can we do it through friends, sisters, brothers? Chris, do we have to be married?
No, you don't.
Thank you.
I think the most important thing is that you have to be clear. You have to be clear that you have a choice. You have to be clear that staying and doing what you've been doing and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity.
But the power of that, though, is that partnership. When you have somebody that you're doing something with and you guys check in and you're intentional together.
That's right.
Two or more gathered.
Right.
A 3-strand cord is stronger than just by yourself. I get that principle. Is there another way is what I'm asking you. Should we have maybe little, money groups? Maybe little church money groups where we check in with one another and hold one another accountable? Because that's what a marriage is, right? Accountability.
Accountability is huge. And if you're married, you've got a built-in accountability partner, or you at least should, right? If you're single or newly single, you can get with someone. You can get with a friend. You guys can work together. It's funny you mention accountability and at the church and getting together. That's what Financial Peace University is. That's that course where people are coming together from all different races and all different income levels, but they're focused on getting better. So yes, it is important to share your goals with someone. It is important to have somebody to cheer you on. I talked about this on my YouTube channel, that there are 4 people I think you need to have in your life. You need to have a mentor. This is somebody that's done something at some point in time. They can guide you. You need a coach. You need somebody to be able to dig into your situation and kind of guide you, almost like a personal trainer.
That's
with your
different
money.
than a mentor?
That's different than a mentor. A mentor is someone that's had success. A coach is someone that's plugged in to help you reach success. Now, your mentor could become a little bit of a coach, but work with me here. If I get a mentor, I get a coach, then you need a cheerleader. You need somebody that's for you, right? Somebody that just believes in you and wants you to do well. And you need a friend. You need somebody you can talk to and be real with. Not somebody that's judging every word, but you can let some stuff out, right? You get that mentor, that coach, that cheerleader, and that friend in your life. Now what you have is support as well as some accountability. But I think we not only need these 4 people in our lives, we also need to be one of these 4 in other people's lives. For somebody else. Yes.
How do you find the mentor and the coach in particular? The friend and stuff are easy. The cheerleader and the friend, you can always get that.
Well, I think the mentor is somebody, they don't have to be in your profession. It's somebody that's had some success or somebody that's overcome some stuff, right? And you can find those people in your neighborhood, in your church. A gentleman that was one of my mentors early on was a 35-year plumber in Kentucky. Plumber. That man taught me more about business than anything in grad school I learned. So I think
we have to be intentional in seeking that out.
Yeah, and reach out to them. They don't have to live near you. You might reach out to somebody. You're here in New York. Reach out to somebody in L.A. Send them an email. Get on the phone and call them. But be proactive to want to learn from someone.
Do you remember when you became a millionaire, Chris Hogan?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember it like it was yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Huh? You're not going to expound?
No. I mean,
you asked me, I answered.
Yeah,
okay.
no. I mean,
tell me about that day.
It wasn't an accident.
Okay.
It was one of those things.
Was it on your board this date, and did you reach that mark on that date?
It was on the board, and it happened a year and a half ahead of schedule. Again, I'm intentional. It's not going to be an accident anymore. I've done enough financial stupid. I've made those mistakes.
So when you get there, then what? Because I imagine a lot of us, you're running to get somewhere, and then you get there. And then what?
I think
what's next?
Well, and that's a really crucial thing with goal setting, right? Is it that you get there and you start to give more, you start to do some of these things. And I think there are all these little offshoots that can happen. But I think our human nature is we think with the finish line is another start line, right? And so for me, it is a matter of thinking, okay, what's next for myself? Now, I'd already laid out what was next 3 years prior. You see, the goal isn't to get and to stop. My goal is to get there and start achieving in some other areas. And so it gives me more freedom. Like I work because I love what I do. I love helping people, right? So it's a matter of you think differently about what am I going to do next? How am I going to try to make an impact? Am I volunteering more? Am I traveling a little bit more? So you start to think differently. But I can tell you this, the thing that's not blocking it is a whole bunch of credit card debt or student loan debt or car payments.
Or worries about, Right. You know, there was a couple in the book. They didn't have any children. And they had reached, I think it was like $4.2 million. And then they started every month giving away all of their money and on a schedule. So they had all of their bills were accounted for. And so instead of saving and bringing it in, they were giving and giving and giving. And I thought that just made me smile because, you know, if you're not saving for a legacy of grandkids because you don't have any, you know, that was the most beautiful way to honor the universe for all that they've been given.
It's powerful. And I read some stories this past holiday of a few people that went in to some stores and paid off some layaways.
Yeah.
Now, for y'all that didn't grow up like I grew up, you may not know about layaway, but that was a way where you pick out some stuff and you go in and make a payment on it, you know, each month until you actually pay it off and own it. But to be able to walk in and have someone write a $25,000 or $30,000 check and pay off all the layaways, can you imagine the look on that single mom's face or that single dad face when they come in to make that $20 payment to find out the debt's been paid, right?
But you can't do that unless you're intentional about getting to that place.
It's not an accident.
Which has got your heart and soul in it, and a whole host of stories from a lot of people who have shared their journeys. Powerful book. Everyday Millionaires is the title. How ordinary people built extraordinary wealth and how you can too. This is important. Can you leave us just with one last word for people out there who are not yet here about the way that they can get there? Just give them one little thing.
Well, I'd say the first thing is believe you can. Just believe, regardless of where you grew up, regardless of your income or your job. I feel like with planning and the right kind of intentionality that you can get on a path to lead you to better. So I know you can do it. You don't need anybody to sign that permission slip. It's in front of you. Your next step, your next action will determine the next step after that. So decide you can and decide you're going to, and let's get to work.
I want to hear from you guys this year. Everyday Millionaires. Chris Hogan, thank you
for
being my
very
inaugural
Thank you.
book series. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.